Crocodile Chariots. That's what this video is going to be about. The reception to my build videos has been very, very positive, not only in the comments, but in my Discord. People have actually asked me to do more of them and told me about how much they've helped them, and so I figured, why not just do more build videos if you guys like them so much? I know that's a weird concept, a YouTuber making videos that people want to watch. I think the reason why you guys like these build videos is AoW4 is a very complicated, very big game, and it can be somewhat hard to come up with your own ideas for, I have this and I'm doing it, it's not really working very well, how do I make a build? And so what we're going to do here is I wanted to do Crocodile Chariots because I saw crocodiles on chariots. If they're alligators, tell me in the comments or something, but I'm going to call them crocodiles. I think crocodile sounds cooler than alligator. At any rate, Crocodile Chariots, I just saw them and I thought, I gotta do this. And I came up with an entire build for it. I've been very busy because I got early access to Europa Universalis 5, which unfortunately is launching like within a week of the next Age of Wonders 4 expansion. So don't ask me how I'm going to work that one out, because I've been looking forward to Europa Universalis 5 for like a decade. It's like EU4 is like literally one of my favorite games of all time. At any rate, because I don't really then have the most time to stream Age of Wonders 4, I thought to myself, why don't I just try to put out at the very least daily videos, either of EU5 or Age of Wonders 4, and I thought to myself, because someone came into my Discord and said, I like your build videos, but you don't make enough of them. And I thought, well, why don't I make enough of them? Why don't I just make more? I've got builds, I've put them together, like the work is already there for me, so why don't I just explain my thought process behind this? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take you through the entire thought process of how we opened with Crocodile Chariots and ended on this. That's not to say that you have to do this build. You can do Crocodile Chariots any way you want, but I'm going to take you through my thought process on it. Now, like always, you can make sure to like, you can make sure to subscribe, you can make sure to leave a comment down below. These things help me immensely and support my channel immensely. The Age of Wonders 4 people have been extremely nice to me. And as always, it's going to be more of a podcast type deal, but you can look here if you want to look here, that's fine too. But as always, you can just, listen along and put me on your second monitor, TV, or whatever like that. Okay. So let's talk about chariots and crocodile chariots. For those of you guys who don't know, when you do select chariots, you can, of course, choose an animal type for it. And some of these I think are cooler than others, but the one that struck out to me, the one that just I was like, wow, that's really cool, is the crocodile chariot. All the other ones are some sort of animal pulling the chariot, and I know crocodiles are animals, but the general idea was like an animal that you wouldn't really think of that weirdly pulling a chariot, right? But then I got to crocodiles and I was like, well, that's amazing. And that's super cool. Now, of course, you can go horses and you can use a different horse skin as well, but for me, I'm going to go crocodile chariots. And when we begin this build, all we want is crocodile chariots. That's as deep as this thought is getting. As with some of my builds, it comes with a really dumb thought, and then we just try to see how far we can take it. Now, of course, if we do want to do crocodile chariots, we need to select the chariot trait. Now, the chariot trait has a few things on it. We get some hit points. We have the numbers of people in the squad, the unit reduced to 1, and additional units become cavalry. This means we're completely immune to casualties, and we need to find a unit that can actually use being mounted. One of the reasons why mount traits aren't really that big a deal is there's no, unfortunately, tier 4 unit that you can take that actually gets the mount trait. Those that can, Tyrant Knight, are... well, he's already got a mount, right? And he's already got 48 movement speed. So often it's best, if you have Tyrant Knight, to just play around him already being a mount and not putting 3 points into giving him a special mount. So I thought to myself, okay, going for a tier 4 unit that uses a chariot maybe isn't the best play because, Transmuter doesn't have an optional mount. Chaos Eater, of course, this guy's not even racial. Judith Cycle, not racial, no mount. Geomancer, not mount. Exemplar will always override your mount with flying. So it came to me in my thoughts that there was really only one faction and there was really only one build that could actually use the chariot mount, both in the early game, mid game, and late game, extremely well. For those of you guys who have watched me before, you might know that, yeah, it's feudal again. Yep, we're doing feudal again. So why are we doing feudal? So number one, feudal has huge benefits to having a crocodile mount. Number one, we have the defender. The Defender is an optional mount unit who will upgrade to a Liege Guard. This gives us a tier 1 and tier 3 unit with an optional mount. These will then be much faster and be much more powerful by using the Crocodile. Number 2, we have the Bannerman, once again an optional mount. Bannerman scales pretty decently now, and you can keep him even into some late game comps and he'll still be kind of fine with 1 or 2 of them in your armies, right? Number 3, of course, the obvious one, Aspirant Knight and Knight. These units, if they do not have any models, if they only have 1 model, will benefit from that. They also get 5 more HP. So the Crocodile Chariot, let's just say the Chariot mount option actually works to benefit my race immensely here, buffing literally everything other than the starting archer, who will generally just die. Although we actually start with 2 archers, but we don't really care about them. Okay, so this is it. This is literally my entire thought process. Now, how do we take chariots plus feudal and make this into an entire build? How do we do that? Well, for those guys who are wondering, the choices here are pretty obvious. There's one tome in particular I thought that works really well with Crocodile Chariot. What is that? Tome of the Horde. Why? Spawnkin. See, when we go Spawnkin, we get increased damage for non-hero units 20%, but in return they get increased number of units in the formation. Unfortunately, for Spawnkin, the Chariot completely counteracts Spawnkin in its entirety. You get down to 1 model. Once you have Spawnkin, that's just a free 20% damage boost. So I thought, if we're getting a free 20% damage boost, how can we take this even further? We just want damage. We want lots of damage. And that's generally where my build started. We've got Spawnkin, plus we got Chariots, plus we've got Knights. How do we make this work to be an actual build? Well, damage. That's basically it. For my traits here, you can see I took Strong. Why did I take Strong? Because damage. Flat damage multiplies off the 20% damage of Spawnkin, so this is going to end up being 4 damage times the 20% of Spawnkin, technically 4.8 damage. We're going to take Experience because when you are in Feudal, as you might know, if you don't know, but let me just explain that really quick. When you are Feudal, the Aspirant Knight will become a Knight once it reaches Legendary. So this Aspirant Knight, we just want to get as much experience onto him, as well as the Defender upgrades to a Liege Guard, so that's 2 different units that will promote and upgrade if we get them enough experience. So the adaptable here makes a lot of sense. Strong makes sense, adaptable makes sense. The Chariot mounts is exactly what we're looking for to do this entire build in the first place. And then we have Careless. Now I went Careless because we aren't really going to be sitting in defense mode. We're just going to be doing a pure damage Giga Rushdown build. So then I thought to myself, okay, if we're doing pure damage, if we're just doing Spawnkin, and we're doing Chariots, how could we exactly make this work? So throughout my tomes I chose, I decided a couple things. One, we're going to go Chosen Destroyers. One, because Crocodile Chariots look really evil. And I thought to myself, Chosen Destroyers is a really good society trait, and I haven't actually done any builds for it. Now, Chosen Destroyers is, of course, that every time you raise a city, you permanently get gold, mana, and knowledge. So this enables you to generate a lot of, well, resources for just burning everybody down you come across. In addition, well, I shouldn't say in addition, I guess I just say part of this is that you generate a lot of knowledge. The more you burn people down, the more knowledge you generate. You're limited to exactly 1 city, which is a bit rough, but the general idea here with Chosen Destroyers is that we can just make the early game strength of Feudal matter a lot, and we can make this early game strength of having our Bannermen, our Defenders, and really it's just we can have our early game Bannermen and Defenders be very powerful by burning down other cities, and if we get them into Liege Guard, that's good too, because Liege Guard is still a good unit. So even before we do the Aspirant Knights, even before we do Knights, we still have a good portion of the build working here. Liege Guard, with our Tome of the Root start, which I'll get into in a second, well, I should say Defender to Liege Guard will do pretty decent damage for a shield unit, and just do pretty good damage overall. Then I decided to go Fabled Hunters down here because of some shenanigans we'll get into later. Fabled Hunters is, of course, good no matter what, really. It's just one of those society traits that you can take and pick in most situations, and I find it at the very least I found it when I was picking through here, to just generally be the best way to play out this build. I don't really like getting an extra archer because the archer in this build is totally unsynergistic and I don't like it from that perspective, but the additional health healing is good, the additional resources is good. This helps us set up in the early game. We have some options for other things, but we kind of just needed one extra nature point for what we were doing here. Other options, if you were going to do them, are of course, you could try Visions of Destiny on Chaos. It's okay. I found it to come into the game a bit too late for Chosen Destroyers, though. If you're playing single player, you could do that. Signs of Evil is also good to get more draft, to churn out more units in the early game. But for me, Kitty is running around behind me. But for me, I just had to take Fabled Hunters because I thought of a funny way to do this build. Yeah, it's nature. Shockingly, most of my builds come down to nature. I really like nature. So we decided to start with Toma Roots because we need damage. We need flat damage to then multiply. Toma Roots is a very powerful tome for setting up your early game. We've got Blight Blades, which is just a general blade thing. We've got a Summon. Summon Entwined Thrall is a pretty powerful one. It just harasses people all day. Herbalist is fine. I'm not sure I'd ever actually build it. But then we have Healing Roots, which is kind of a low mana way to keep our dudes healed up throughout the early game, or if we end up in early game fights. And then Vine Prison, even after it's been nerfed so many times, continues to be relevant into the mid game. Just a powerful combat spell that can really mess people up, particularly if you're playing melee heavy. It can trip up enemy armies and just not be fun for them. So we've got our early game set up right here, and then we've got our hero. Now, you can go pretty much any which way with your hero here. This part isn't actually really that important. It is good for feudal to have a champion, or at the very least a wizard king, so you can get the 2 XP to your units in his traits. You can, though, if you want to level up your units a little bit slower, it's definitely not as good to level up your defenders and your aspirant knights a bit slower, but of course, due to the fact that you are of course Chosen Destroyers, you can of course go with a Dragon Lord for stronger early game, Eldritch Sovereign for a stronger early game, or Giant King for a stronger early game. And if you're watching this a month and a half in the future, I think Vampire Lord will be pretty strong as well. But for me, because I just like champions, I'm gonna like Vampire Lord too. Racial Vampire Lords are like their best idea, and I think that's gonna be really cool. I'm really looking forward to Vampire Lord. If you're watching us a month and a half in the future, say hi. Tell me how good they are. I'm hoping they're good, because Battle Saint really let me down. At any rate, Champion gives, there's the trait, gives you healing to your army, gives you 2 XP per turn to your army. This helps us level up our dudes, and it does benefit us because then he gets the Chariot Mount at the beginning. Unfortunately, I don't think the Chariot Mount benefits him at all, other than just kind of looking cool. He doesn't get to have one model because he's always one model. I did originally go Battle Saint here. As you can see, my letdown. I personally would probably recommend Warrior, or at the very least Defender. Both of these are pretty decent in the early game. Both of these are pretty good because remember, we are Chosen Destroyers. We're trying to run people down. When we are trying to level up our dudes while running people down. So I definitely think that having the Defender and the Warrior here is very good options, right? Other than that, I mean, you can pretty much run whatever you want. The hero class itself is not too vital for this build. You could go Warlock, you could go anything. I mean, other than maybe, well, probably not Ritualist. Ritualist might be a bit of a tough sell. You do want someone who helps you push early game, particularly if you're doing a mortal type deal, right? But anything really works. Nothing will break the build. Everything here works. Now, for my character myself, I did decide to go with a unique thing we call Guthuk the Liberator. The appearance, I think, of your faction is very important because the cooler your appearance, the more you'll like it, right? So because we're Chosen Destroyers, because we're using the Crocodile mounts, the nature kind of works here. Nature, chaos, a little bit heavier on the nature. That's just because I don't think chaos tomes are good right now. That'll probably change next expansion, but for now I just don't think the chaos tomes are too good. We could probably, if they do buff the chaos tomes, we can maybe go a bit heavier into them next expansion, but it is still a very nature chaos heavy build, so we gotta kind of look evil because we are chosen destroyers. We went with Guthuk the Liberator as his name because, you know, irony. And of course, you do have to go with the Crocodile here, because it's, I mean, that's the entire build. Why else would I play this build if not for the Crocodile Chariot, right? If you choose anything else, you've just totally ruined it. Now, maybe you could argue that everybody else gets a Crocodile Chariot. Maybe he gets tigers. I don't know. I never considered that, actually. I didn't realize you could actually have a different chariot for your ruler than for your guys in the back. Maybe that would be cool. Maybe like your ruler has tigers and everybody else has alligators, and I don't know. It's just Crocodile Chariots. It's got to be Crocodile Chariots. It's got to be. It's just got to be. So you'd probably be warrior. Go ahead and grab a lance. There you go. You're riding in a chariot. Run up to people. Kapow! They die. It's really cool. Okay. For the looks here, of course, we are a bit evil. We're a bit vile. So I decided to go with a heavy armored kind of character looking with the helmet, with the kind of evil looking helmet here. I don't know. Does that look evil to you? It kind of looked evil to me. And we went with a red coloring here, and we went gray because we can't go with black. Then for the armor itself, we went with black. So it's red on black armor here. I thought that looked pretty cool. As for the race itself, the dudes in the back, I decided to make them red. I thought, like, okay, so they're orcs, but they're like evil orcs, right? So maybe make them red, kind of do like a Warcraft type of deal right here. I thought that kind of worked out. I'm not entirely sold on the idea. I mean, if you made them green, it wouldn't really change much. But I mean, I thought the red orc really kind of stuck out, and I like that a bit better. I think I like it a bit better, particularly if we're doing like a chosen destroyers, right? They're like blood raging orcs. It works. Just trust me. Talking about all the appearance here is actually very important. You do have to make your race look very cool, okay? So that takes us to our tome path, where I assume we'll spend the majority of the video, or maybe not, and to our ambition. Now, you do have lots of ambition choices, but as always, there's a couple that are generally just easier to use and better than others. For me, I went Instructor because, of course, you do have to remember that Feudal levels up. They've got the Defender into the Liege Guard, the Aspiring Knight into the Knight. I know I keep saying that, but it does make sense here then, because we go Instructor, and our Lord, once he gets a full army of legendary rank units, he gets Trainer. Now, that's a lot of renown, and then for the entire rest of the game, all units in his army get 50% more experience. And do note that all experience gained outside, or I should mention, yeah, let me phrase it this way to be more clear. All experience gained outside of battle is not affected by these modifiers. These modifiers, all of them in game, only affect units in battle. The 2 XP per turn from Devotees of Good, the 2 XP per turn off your champion, lords, heroes, those are not affected by these at all. Some people think they are, they actually aren't. I just figured I'd say that one. So we just like Trainer because it helps us level up very, very quick. What you can do, some tips if you want to be able to use Feudal with this build better. Don't actually rush to upgrade your main city until you probably have a full stack of legendaries. Now you can have 2, maybe 3 stacks. We're chosen destroyers. So do remember, because you're chosen destroyers, you'll probably be using your early game Imperium to get a second hero. So you might even want a second stack for that hero. Maybe, maybe not. Really depends on how well you're clearing, right? Now, if you do have a second stack, it's pretty likely that between the 2 stacks, you'll likely end up with some legendary units. In the early game, it's pretty common for you to want to shuffle some units out of your stack who maybe aren't that good. So maybe you might have an archer who just happened to not die, but you don't want to be giving him experience anymore. Because remember, every unit above 6 splits the experience. Minimum experience divide is always 6. So if you have 6 units in a stack, you're getting the same unit, getting the same experience as if you had 1 unit in a stack, right? The minimum divide is 6. If you have 7, now you're getting less. So there will be some units in the early game that do survive, particularly archers, but often maybe some units you found around the map, some creature cage units, stuff like that. Now you will often still have these units around, and maybe you show them in your second army, but it's just a little trick. All I'm trying to say is a little trick here. What you can do for instructor is keep those legendary units around, and don't upgrade your city to tier 3 until all your defenders are legendary, and then you can slap them in your stack, then upgrade your city, and boom, now you've got your full major ambition done, and you've got this experience, and now your liege guard are going to level up super quick, or your aspiring knights, preferably your aspiring knights. We're focusing here on aspiring knights, right? But both of them are going to be pretty good for the build. Okay, that takes us into, what did I do for heroes? I only set up one starting hero. Well, that was a mistake. Looks like I went with the ritualist. That's pretty typical, actually, to have one guaranteed ritualist when you set up your stacks. If you don't like using guaranteed second heroes, you don't have to, but I think having at least one guaranteed ritualist is a pretty good deal. Of course, the ambition, it kind of matters. Oh wait, actually, I made a terrible mistake here throughout the entire video. Yes, right. We go monarchy. Not aristocracy. Oh no, we do go monarchy. Wait, did we go aristocracy? Yeah, no, aristocracy does work. What am I talking about? Yeah. Okay, so aristocracy is really dumb because, okay, let me actually explain this. I totally forgot about this myself, and other people have also forgotten about this little caveat here, actually. And this is why aristocracy actually works. Some of you guys might have been watching this video for like the last 10 minutes being like, how the hell are you gonna do aristocracy and chosen destroyers? Let me explain this one. Okay, units get the additional health based on if your hero whose house they're in is in the battle. They, on the world map, won't show that they're gaining additional health, but they will show that in the actual battle itself. So what that means is that if you only have one house, meaning if you only have the main house, the main city from a chosen destroyer, everybody built there will follow the house of your lord. But so long as your lord is in the battle, even if his units are being assisted by other heroes, they will actually get that health once they enter the battle. It just won't show that they're getting that health on the world map. It's a bit of a cosmetic thing, and even I forget about it. Well, no, I don't. Other people forget about it, which makes me forget about it, because sometimes memory works like that, right? At any rate, this build does work, and the build does work. Yeah. Okay. So I think I actually had this set up. It should be chosen destroyers, fabled hunters. Yes. Okay, so the way I had this set up, yeah, this is why, oh my god, I got this. Okay, so you guys can see how much I even get wrong. This game can be complicated sometimes. Once you properly choose feudal aristocracy, though of course you can go feudal monarchy, both of these are totally fine, right? It's just the aristocracy has a liege guard, which I think is generally better, but feudal monarchy gives you more damage and takiness, and I would say it's generally better in the early game. Both of these can work, actually. In retrospect, both of these are actually totally fine. I don't know why I had to do that whole rant, but if you do go with aristocracy, that does free up your point from fabled hunters to put into other things. We're gonna keep it in fabled hunters here for now. I just made this really complicated, and a lot of you guys are pretty confused, probably, but I assure you, all of this does work. Okay, why does this all work? Because when we go to the tome paths, everything works here. Let me explain why we need the Fabled Hunters then if you're doing the Feudal Monarchy. Feudal Monarchy doesn't let you upgrade to the Liege Guard. Feudal Aristocracy. A lot of people are probably confused because I chose the one this game even complicates too much for me sometimes. But okay. Tome of Roots. We open with Tome of Roots. That gives us nature. Now, if we are Feudal Monarchy, we would only have 3 nature at this point. That's not too great, right? Because of what we're going to go into later. We got Tome of Roots, Tome of the Horde. Now, of course, you can open with Tome of the Horde. I just opened Tome of Roots because I like their summon a bit more, but Tome of the Horde is fine. I just find that Summon Irregular then has the problem that you have a 50-50 shot of getting your Archer, and I really don't like that Archer because we're not helping him. So I think it's better to go Tome of Roots into Tome of the Horde. We do have the problem with this build that we have no research SPI, but it's not really that big of a problem because you have to remember we're playing Chosen Destroyers. That research SPI would only buff 1 city anyway, and we're just going to do full WoW big giga damage. That's as deep as this build is getting, right? Full WoW giga damage. Okay, So that leads us to Tome of the Horde for the Spawnkin. I think Tome of the Horde second is generally better. But I think it's just going to be better. We do have Unleash the Warhounds. Now, why do I like Unleash the Warhounds? Because as a Chosen Destroyer, we will be doing lots of sieges, if not on other players, then on city-states. Unleash the Warhounds is a very powerful siege project that will generally make these sieges much more consistent and much easier. Of course, some Chosen Destroyer players do let their free city live for a little bit, and when you let it live for a little bit, you can get more permanent buffs off killing it, and when you do that, you might be at the Unleash the Warhounds point where you can easily destroy it, even if it walled up and everything. Okay. Tome of Revelry. I really like Tome of Revelry, and it worked here as well because we have flat damage from the Tome of Roots. Now we have flat damage from the Tome of Revelry. Why does this work? Well, basically, you have to remember we're feudal. Most of my builds with feudal are going to be going Tome of Revelry because I find Revels of Carnage just invaluable with feudal, getting more experience to our heroes, our lord, and most importantly, our liege guard and our aspiring knights into knights will be getting more experience. I should say defenders into liege guard. All these guys will be getting more experience off the Revels of Carnage, so that's quite good. Blood Fury weapons is just flat damage. This just gives us flat damage, which synergizes well with our Tome of the Horde, and we will have some crit later on that flat damage multiplying scales. Where will we get this crit? Because remember, Feudal Aristocracy will be getting you 50% more morale. Feudal Aristocracy gives you morale at the start of the battle if you're fighting along with your lord, so Reveler's Heart actually pushes that if your lord is all the way at super high renown level. I think we're level 4. It might be level 3 as well. Either way, you'll push yourself to high morale and get crit damage. Crit damage is percent damage. I've heard that crit damage actually stacks additively with percent damage from other sources as well. So it's like if you had Spawnkin plus crit, it would only be 70% more damage, not 80% more damage. That crit doesn't multiply the entire attack by 50%, but just adds a 50% more damage modifier on there, right? And then it would stack with all the other more damage modifiers. At any rate, yes, Tome of Revelry quite good. Carnival of Flush is more draft. Draft is fine, I guess. If you're playing Chosen Destroyers, draft might be an issue with you getting enough. Now, of course, I went Tome of Artificing here, but realistically, all we're really looking for is more damage. I like the Artisan Armaments just to get me more crit damage, because all I'm thinking of here is Big Wah. What, of course, you can do is go back and maybe grab the Tome of Cryomancy if you desperately just want that research SPI. The Materium effects here, these are not too important. Materium affinity is not really that big a deal for us, right? We just wanted more damage, more crit. So of course, if you want to get more flat damage, because you do have the Spawnkin, you do have the crit modifiers, you could just go ahead and get another tome. But I think just getting more crit is good. We will end up having a lot of crit in this build, potentially too much. We'll end up seeing how it goes, right? Now, I do like Tome of Cycles because we needed a little bit more nature affinity. Because do remember, we would have one, if we went Feudal Monarchy, we'd have 1 Fabled Hunters, 2 Tome of Roots, 3 Tome of Roots. We'd only have 3 nature affinities. So we'd have to take a nature tome right here. How do we do that? Tome of Cycles. Tome of Cycles also has some good synergy with Tome of Roots. That's because Blight Blades gives you 10% more damage against poison and decaying targets. Well, Tome of Cycles will give us those decaying targets. Tome of Cycles is also pretty good for Chosen Destroyers because in addition to the Blades of Decay and the Blooming Projectiles for our Bannermen, I did talk about the Bannermen earlier, they do scale not great but decent enough in this build, right? We get Cycle of Seasons, which remember the last expansion was changed. You can put this on enemy cities now. So you can slap this on an enemy city as you're about to siege it. You combo that with the Tome of the Horde, Unleash the Warhounds, and it just makes it really much easier to take down cities. And the Blades of Decay allows you to automatically apply decay to enemy units, which means that if you're fighting a tanky build that's going to try to out-heal your just Giga Wah damage, that you're just going to say, no, I'm going to spam decay on you. And there's not a whole lot that people can do about that. Until you maybe get Pure Soul at tier 4, Blades of Decay is pretty much dominant. And we're going tome number 4 is going to be Tome of Cycles. So there's really not much the AI or another player could do to resist your decaying blades for a good chunk of time. Now I decided to go with Tome of Devastation here because Flame Burst Weapons is generally useful. We don't really have the best use of this. This 5th tome could be a lot of different options actually. I just decided to go with Flame Burst Weapons because it counters any sort of reviving. It gives us more crit. So we're at 20% crit here. Over here we are at 45% crit. If we have high morale, that's another 20%, so it's 65% crit. We're gonna have a lot of crit in this build, right? Crit's just good for reducing enemy morale should they be tanky, and also just crit, big damage, right? It also counters anyone who's trying to do revive spam on you, so we're countering healing, we're countering revive spam. We get a pretty good build here. Now the only problem, of course, is that Tome of Devastation is only really good for one thing, the Flame Burst Weapons, but getting more damage out of tomes for melee is a bit rough. By tier 3, a lot of tomes don't really give a lot of damage to melee. What we could do is try to shift over into an elemental build, but what I did, as you see here, shift into a nature build. Now, if we are, of course, doing Feudal Aristocracy, we can go Tome of Paradise here right quick. But if we're not doing Feudal Aristocracy, if we're doing Feudal Monarchy, then you have to go Tome of Prosperity, because right now we will be at 5 nature, but we'll be 5 nature, 1 order affinity, the 1 order affinity through Feudal, which allows us to get Tome of Prosperity. Tome of Prosperity will then shoot us to 6 nature, which allows us to next get Tome of Paradise. Now, why do we like Tome of Prosperity? So we have damage. We got the most giga damage build to ever damage, right? But you know what's good for giga damage builds? Having a little bit of survivability so you can actually survive to do damage. Tome of Prosperity, I always say, is like one of the best tomes in the game. That's due to Blessed Armor, giving you more resistance, giving you the ability to resist poke damage with that Inner Grace. Inner Grace, every single turn you get Grace, you get hit, you heal. So this helps resist AoE damage, it helps resist poke damage, and generally allows us to get these Leash Guard, get these knights into range. Hopefully we'd have a full stack of knights at this point, right? Maybe we die and we have to rely more on Leash Guard again, but you know, you never know, right? So Blessed Armors is just going to be really good for keeping us alive. Summon Prosperity Dragon is also in a pinch. This allows us to forward summon a pretty good unit that can use Mask of Prosperity on our Lord, because often Lords will be focused, and if we're using a melee Lord, it's good to have a Prosperity Dragon who can link to him and keep him from dying. And of course, Reign of Prosperity is just generally pretty good for having that global additional 1 cleanse plus Grace is just generally good, right? We also get Stabs of Grace, which allows our Bannerman to scale a bit better. Inner Grace allows them to survive a bit more. The Cleansing Rain ability. This can AoE remove all buffs and debuffs. This is more useful than people think because you can use this in a pinch to remove steadfast from enemies to be able to kill them. Or alternatively, if an enemy is just buff blocked and they're just an entire field of buffs, you can use Cleansing Rain to remove all their stacks of bolster armor, bolster resistance, and then your melee units will be able to get in there and do a lot more damage, right? It also can allow you to cleanse your units should your units get stunned or anything like that. So having some Bannermen in the back with Stabs of Grace, I found like at least like 2. Throw your 3 stacks, you probably want at least 2 here. In this build, Garden of Affluence is not really going to be the most useful for obvious reasons, but Grand Protection will be useful. This will be an AoE 2, Grace, Regeneration, Bolster Defense, Bolster Resist, makes you tanky, gives you lots of healing, gives you Grace. So once again, if you do end up in a situation where you got lots of dudes, that you can make them very tanky and hit enemies pretty hard. The Regeneration is also good, because Regeneration is just, in my opinion, pretty good. My mouth is getting dry. You know, I got to 20 minutes in this video before I did tomes, and I thought, man, I can definitely do this video in under 40 minutes. This won't be another 40-minute build video. We're going to get right through here. Okay, Tome of Paradise. Now, we've talked about Tome of Paradise a lot. You'll see it show up in my builds a lot. I love Tome of Paradise. Why is that? Because Tome of Paradise gives you access to Guys Chosen. Guys, Chosen on its own is one of the most powerful major race transformations in the game, but then when you combine it with Tome of the Goddess of Nature, it becomes probably top 3 major race transformation. We'll see what happens next expansion. Maybe Vampire will show up there. I'm assuming there's gonna be some sort of Vampire transformation. So you get the plant unit type, which did get buffed a bit back. It only gives 4 fire resist reduction for 4 lightning resist increase. You get Forest Walk for free, and then you get 20% healing received in combat, which is a lot, which does actually work with your Total Prosperity. It works with Regeneration. It works with your Bannerman. It works with everything, right? Just 20% more healing. Forest Walk is also useful if you get some bad fights. You can use the forest maps a little bit better. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of there, but then you just get 3 status resist, 20 hit points. Our build doesn't really have the most tankiness throughout it, and this just gives us more health. If you're going Feudal Monarchy, you've got resistance, you've got defense, and then you've got damage. But, you know, having more hit points is good too. If we're going Feudal Aristocracy, this is going to stack with that huge HP boost from Feudal Aristocracy, which is going to give us, I mean, that's what, like 60 HP in total? A lot is what I'm trying to say. A lot. Okay. Exhilarating Pollen gives you the ability to not be morale bombed out. You can Exhilarating Pollen early in a fight, but realistically your dudes are going to be at near full morale. I mean, I think they're at full morale from the start of the battle, so realistically, if you're getting morale bombed out while playing with this build, not that great. Enchanted Bloom is decent enough for trying to get your main city some extra draft, because you're only gonna have the one city, so having your one city get extra draft is nice. With the Chaos Affinity, it's pretty easy to get some of the well, it's pretty easy to get the Chaos track. Hopefully Chaos track is better for you guys who are watching it some more than I am. The one that gives you a population in your city whenever you raise enemy cities. Now you can use that. Your home city will probably be 30 pops. So if you do Enchanted Bloom, it's a pretty easy way to get your main city up to 60 draft. So as Chosen Destroyers, that can be really good for helping you in the mid game. Nature's Bounty is just more HP for everybody, which is generally good. Blessing of Paradise can be fine. I've often found it quite difficult to try to find the time to cast this come mid game, because 200 casting to get you like a little bit extra industry, and it's like, okay, you know, do I really need production and food that late in the game? Probably not. Fortress of Vines works with this build good, because all plant units drafted in the city get +1 rank. You know what are plant units? Our units are plant units. So that means, fortunately, that we have a way to get those Aspiring Knights and those Defenders to be a higher rank when we draft them. So again, if we do need to recover from a bad situation, we've got something to do about it. Fortress of Vines also generally makes your main city kind of unattackable. It's very powerful. Tome of the Goddess of Nature is then when we combine everything, and it works perfectly. We've got Mass Rejuvenation. So Mass Rejuvenation picks up our dudes and does leave them with 1 action point now. So all friendly animals and plants are brought back to life. Our dudes will be plant. You just whoop, global heal. The 40 health becomes 50 health once you have the Nature Orb, which then gets multiplied by 20% more, becomes 60 global healing, and everybody revives. So that's pretty good. Just generally a very powerful spell right there. Then Force of Nature gives us a lot more damage and more crit. So we get more flat damage to multiply our percent damage, and then we get more percent damage to multiply our flat damage. Wow, look at that. Force of Nature, absolutely incredible. And also Forest Awareness is here. So in total, the build, I would say, is just... it's very much a WoB Giga Damage build, and it's very much a build based on just using... effectively, this entire build is spawned around Spawnkin plus Crocodile Chariot. That's it. Honestly, that's everything I did was just made up to do that. But it should actually be pretty strong, and it should actually scale pretty well regardless of anything else. Regardless of it being a meme build, this should actually be a strong build. And I think that hopefully by taking my thoughts through all of this for you guys...
what is that?
Although I do think I made this part a little bit confusing. Unfortunately, it was a little bit too late, and I realized my mistake, and I was like, oh crap, I'm like 22 minutes in this video. But, you know, hopefully it's not too confusing for you guys as I go through it. Maybe I'm making it a bigger deal than it made out to be. But anyway, I'm hoping this helps you guys understand my thought process. Hopefully you guys can understand that you can realistically take this anywhere. I mean, the main idea is just Spawnkin plus Crocodile Chariot, right? You can use this on Tyrant Knight. You can use this if you want to go with a tier 3. If you're playing single player, you definitely don't need a focus on tier 4 units. You can go with more of a tier 3 one. Hell, this build might actually even be a viable Glade Runner, because you could do Glade Runner with Crocodile Chariot. Spawnkin is quite good for range units. There's an option for you as well, because range units don't have the most damage sources and tomes, so them being able to do Spawnkin, that's a 20% boost, and then being able to do Spawnkin without being able to lose units because they're immune to casualties, that's pretty good too, right? So you could do this, and then if you're doing Spawnkin Crocodile Chariots, it would actually work pretty well too, because then you would get the Houndmaster for the early game, who's one of the only good ranged units for clearing the map quite effectively. So, oh man, you could go that perspective as well and try to just make this into a range build. There's lots of options available to you. You can pretty much do anything, just as long as it's Crocodile Chariot. Okay. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being here. Please make sure to like. Please make sure to subscribe. And as always, I hope you all have a great rest of your day.